As we continue with the design of our jig, next we're going to move on to this top bushing plate. The obvious is we need to add bolts and dowels here to fasten it, and I also need to take this lock screw and add a hole for it. So I'm going to do that next. So I've gone ahead and I've added the hole, the 5/16, 18 threaded hole, which suits my lock screw, and then I've made it the lock screw here. And the next thing I need to do is, it looks like this is interfering with this. To be certain, I'm just going to look normal to this face. I'll zoom back in, and then I'll change this face to transparent, and I can see there is interference here. So I need to go ahead and alter and make a bit of a clearance hole for this part of the lock screw head into my plate. So I'll do that next. So I've gone ahead and added a bit of a spot face here so there's clearance for the head of the lock screw to come down in this hole and it won't interfere. And turn the transparency of this off. I'm going to rotate around a bit. The next thing to do is to add holes for bolts and dowels for alignment. The alignment is very important because this plate aligns our pin here, and here's where we run into the tolerance stacking issue that we're always warned about when we design things, but there isn't many ways to avoid it. This plate also does not resist any cutting forces, such that the drill comes through the bushing and into the part. So the size of the screws and the dowels is irrelevant. I just want to choose an easy size that fits my part. Now that I've gone ahead and added fasteners and pull dowels, I should visually check that nothing interferes and that the wall thickness is appropriate and nothing will break because it's too thin. So everything looks okay. I'm going to turn the transparency of this off, and then I'm going to open this plate. And when I create the drawing for this plate, the distance from the bottom of the plate to the center of my dowel holes is what's critical here. I'll control tab back to my part. And that's because where these dowel holes are controls where this indexing pin will be. Again, we don't want a stacking tolerance issue, or we would like to minimize it. So when I dimension those holes, it's critical they come from this face. And then the same thing when we get to this part shortly, it's critical that the distance to this top face is dimensioned from the center of this collet hole to minimize our stacking tolerance error. And now this plate, other than a discussion of the material, which will come later, should be sufficient for now. Next, we'll move on to this plate and the retainer for the collet, as well as how do we maintain this distance here that we haven't discussed yet.